everybody. Andrew Marston here with another Community Spotlight interview series episode where we get to know a member of the Square community a little bit better. And today we are joined by Ryan Plummer himself. Ryan, thank you for making time today.
Yeah.
Um,
Hello.
Hello, Ryan. You work for the School of Motion. Could you expound a little bit on what you do at School of Motion?
Yes. It's easy, but it's a little tricky. But at the same time, my title is creative strategist, and on a daily basis, I work on the community aspect of the School of Motion. And as a creative strategist, I look for ways to engage the community, and so I build a creative strategy to engage everyone. And if you get our Motion Mondays email, I write those. And when I say I write those, I gather the links that everybody shares to us, which we're very grateful for. It helps us stay on top of the industry and keep a beat on it. I gather those and talk about those in there, and then I also gather some of the cool conversation that's happening on the square and add that to the Motion Mondays email. So if you're ever opening those up, check the section for the alumni. Outside of if you're not an alumni, you do not get that in the Motion Mondays email. That section's completely not there. And let's see, I get to engage in cool conversations with people like Andrew. Andrew, you and I get to work on you know this, but just saying for everybody else, but we get to work on some cool stuff. Right now we're building a tutorial series that hopefully will come out soon, covering some tools. And I'm really, really excited about that one.
Yes.
And there's some more special stuff coming along with that.
Awesome.
And really just getting to build out like stuff like 15-minute MoGraph. That's a part of the creative strategy in engaging and making the School of Motion community a cool place to hang out, and something that's going to hopefully help people's careers thrive. So
At this point, all my paid work is coming from the Square and the Alumni Network, which is awesome. And I know some other people who it's the same for them. And I forgot to ask you, where can people find your work online?
Well, I have some outdated work. You can find it at rplummer.com. I actually just recently got that domain, and I'm super stoked about it because before no one could pronounce the domain I had, which is grain.net. But I was a little trying to be funny and cute and clever with how I spelled it. It was GREYN.net. And every time I try to give out my email, they'd be like greatn.net. And I'm like, it's not two words. I don't understand. There's no hyphen or anything. So anyways, that's a long story. But rplummer.com, you can find some of the things that I've written, some of the interviews that I've got to do with some people before when I was an alumni. I believe that's what's there. Let me check really quick. Yes, so I have a link to some of the original alumni that were here. We got to do some just written interviews when I was an alumni. So you'll find stuff from like DJ Summit and Dorky Museb. Greg Stewart has a really cool article on there that I got to write with him on minimalist motion design. Yeah, you can find some old work that I haven't updated my demo reel since like 2017, I think. And so, yeah.
Let's just backtrack because you touched on a bunch of things that I want to talk to you about: 15-minute MoGraph, School of Motion alumni, your career. But I would love to get the whole story, get to know Ryan's origin story. So, where did you grow up, and can you fill in the blanks between this exact moment and your birth?
Oh man, what an expansive history there.
It's an easy question, Ryan. Just answer the
It's
question.
so easy. Well, what is the most relevant information here?
Like where'd you grow up?
Yeah. So I grew up in a small town called Wills Point, Texas. It's in Texas, and that's actually where I met my wife in high school. There, I met her just before I went to high school. We did not date we did it once in high school, and then we did it for a week, and it didn't last. And so we actually didn't date until we got in college. That's a whole other story that we could spend this entire conversation with. So I was born here in McKinney, Texas, just north of Dallas. I've been in Texas my entire life. I've actually never traveled outside the country. I've got to travel through many states, just like through work and stuff like that. That's been cool. But um, I've always been lived in small towns. Like when I say small, 3,000 people, um, and like a graduating class of 200. So it's like small, but not the smallest. Like there were towns around us that within like 5 minutes that people like they had maybe 18 people in their graduating class. So very farm townish. My dad is a master electrician, and he raised me um, uh, to not want to do that because we would do that work all the time. My spring breaks and my summers, I was helping him. And in high school, he would send me off to work on a ranch with. When I say send off, I still lived with them. He didn't send me off
Oh,
to go to
okay.
like a boarding ranch or anything like that. But it was just a small, quaint little town. And if someone came up and was like, "I need help with whatever duties were at the ranch," my dad would offer me up, and that was my summer job. And I quickly, realized I didn't want to do that, but I had no idea what I wanted to do as a career or anything like that. And then my senior year of high school, um, they introduced a video production class. And it was covering, we learned Premiere Elements, and we got to use these tiny little Sony Handycams. And that was fascinating to me, being able to make something and then cut it together, even if it was like a simple program. And for some reason, I was like, if there's like a kid in like science class or in chemistry, you're like, I don't understand how you get those things and how you're doing it. Can you show me how you're doing that? I was that person in this video class. People were like, well, I don't understand how you're editing like this, or why how you're thinking like that. And um, objectively, all the stuff I made was very bad at that point in time, but it was
It's high
better
school.
than. But it was high school, very much so.
Yeah.
And that class was actually a big deal because in a small hometown stuff, we had core curriculum. We didn't have stuff like that. It was either football. We actually had a very good band. Our band was was the highlight of our high school. We went to state several times in our band. Our football team rarely made playoffs,
Marching band?
but marching band, yes,
Yeah.
marching
Oh,
band.
marching band is awesome.
I played. It's called a mellophone, but we had, that was one of the good things we had there, and so I do have a little bit of a musical background. I played in jazz band in high school. I played the drums, and that was super fun because all I had known before that was just playing like rock music on the drums, and jazz music is very, very challenging. And reading music for drums, it just feels very unnatural. um, but from there, my teacher was like, "You should, think about going to college for doing video and stuff like that." And I was like, "No, I want to go do sound engineering." And I don't know why that was the thing I wanted to go do. I don't even remember why. So I went to college for a year, and my freshman year of college, um, I moved in with my cousin, and he had already been at this. It was A&M A&M Commerce. So it's like a branch of A&M, Texas. And he had been working at this print shop there, and he was starting to learn graphic design. And he said, "Hey, I heard the recreational center, like the gym and the pool and all that stuff on the campus, that they need a video person. And you started learning video in high school." And I was like, "Yeah, but I don't know very much." And so I start building a resume. I've never built a resume in my entire life. This actually is a pretty embarrassing resume because my resume was my dad saying, "Hey, here's my son. You can go work." Right. So Country Bumpkin coming into college was a very fun, unique experience. So we're building out the resume, and my cousin says, "Hey, put down that you know After Effects." And I reply to him and I say, "What's After Effects?" And he goes, "Don't worry about it. Just put it down." And so I go to this meeting, and the design manager, I can't remember her full title, but she's over like the little marketing department kind of there. Her name's Jessica, and Jessica said, we're going over the interview, and it's going okay. And then she gets down to the bottom of like what programs I know, and I wrote down like I know Word and
Nice.
Excel and Premiere Elements, and then she reads After Effects, and she goes, "Oh, you know After Effects?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she goes, like, "How well?" I was like, "Well, not great, but I can get around inside of After Effects." And I felt like that would buy me some time to kind of learn the program if I needed to do that. And right after that, she goes, "Can you start tomorrow?" And I was like, uh, yes, I can. And I was super excited that I had
Yeah.
a job. And here's a funny thing about the resume. It was like in the resumes, it's like, what is your goal?
Yeah.
At the top. And I put to get a job at the recreation center. I had no idea what I needed to put.
Well, it's very targeted. That's targeted
Oh
marketing
yeah.
right there.
What is your goal? To be your friend? No.
It
So
worked.
I go home that night and I start looking up because I felt like it was very clear that's why I got the job as After Effects. So I went home. YouTube saved me here, and it was like, "What is After Effects?" And I don't think I went to bed till like 4 o'clock that morning. And man, I wanted to slug my cousin. I was so upset, and I struggled trying to figure out. I didn't understand anything about After Effects, and rightfully so. It's a very complex program, but I learned trial by fire. So in that job, they would ask me, "Hey, can you give me a lower third?" And I was like, "Yeah, hey, give me like 2 hours. I'll give you a lower third." And then I would go to Google and say, "What's a lower third?" Give me the answer, please. And then trying to make sure I fully nailed down what the actual accurate thing was that I needed. I don't think anybody ever realized that I didn't know After Effects,
Nice.
but things would take longer. And so,
Yeah.
like, she'd be like, "Hey, it's been 3 hours." Where I was like, "Hey, I'm almost done. I'm sorry. I'm trying to make sure that this font is set or whatever." Eventually, I like learn enough naming culture, whatever the term is,
Hmm.
the terms. How about that?
Yeah.
I've learned enough of the terms that I could answer kind of back a little bit. And maybe 4 hours later, I had the end product, and so that was like a year of that. And
Jeez.
luckily for me, I decided I didn't want to do college anymore. So I took a year of college, didn't want to do it anymore. Moved to Lubbock with my cousin. He graduated with his bachelor's and wanted to go do his master's at Texas Tech. And so I was like, I'll move out there and we'll get a job. So without ever being to Lubbock or anything like that, we rented a house. I moved out there, slept on the ground for like the first 2 or 3 months. I looked for jobs, any job I could find. I got one job at Journeys. I don't know if you know what Journeys is, but
The
it's
clothing place.
they sell shoes and they sell clothes
Okay.
too.
Yeah. I don't know that I've been in the
S-
Journeys, but I've seen them in the mall.
yeah, it was like a hit play. It's like it's targeted for like young 20s and late
Oh,
teens,
cool
stuff like
people.
that.
That's why I've never
Yeah,
been in.
yes, the
Okay.
current or yeah, the generation that controls the culture. No,
Never me.
so yeah, I'm definitely. It was a very odd job for me to have because one, just growing up in the country, and two, coming into that, it was just a whole weird thing. So I got a job there, and then I got a job at Taco Bell. So I worked at Taco Bell, but only for a month because I moved up to co-manager at Journeys, and it wasn't because I was amazing or anything like that. It's because my manager got into a wreck, went into a coma, and then the two other managers got caught for stealing and selling illegal things out of the store. And so the entire managerial staff was let go. And they flew somebody in, and they're like, "Hey, you live here now," for this guy named Mike. And then they were like,
Whoa.
"We need co-managers. Who wants to be a co-manager?" And I was like, "Me," And so I worked like 80-hour not days. There's not 80 hours in a day. 80-hour weeks for like a year straight, and that was enough to push me back into school. And so I went to the School of Hard Knocks, working at Journeys, which was not a very pleasant experience. I learned a lot, but especially how not to talk to people. I learned a lot in that in that job. But then I went to school at this little tiny college called South Plains College, and it's in Level End, Texas. It's right next to Tech. There, I went for a video production, and I already had a year under my belt with commerce, and so I had another 2 years there, and I got an associate's there. So, like, as like an associate's in video production technology, and I got a certificate in sound design and graphic design there as well. The school is really known for like their music program and their sound design program. They had amazing equipment, so I got to learn. And when I say sound design, it was um, like in studio stuff, and so I like set up studio equipment and then like set up a board and mix and stuff like that. That was so fun. Um, and then moved back to Dallas and started getting some freelance work and
And you're now still in the Dallas area.
I am still in the Dallas area. Yes.
How did you get to in with School of Motion? I feel like that's the after the you went freelance. What happens
Mhm.
next?
Yeah. So let's see. I went freelance. I had no idea how to get a job at first. And my dad's church, they had an audio engineer come in and set up like a bunch of like sound equipment, like speakers and all that kind of stuff. And this guy's name, I don't know if I should be dropping everybody's name, but I don't care. His name's Lars, and Lars is super awesome. And he had all kinds of work for me to do. And he was very trusting of me to do a lot of things. So I got to learn some live sound design where he'd drop off his truck full of equipment at like a festival, like a town festival, and be like, "Hey, just set this stuff up, and I'll be back in a few hours." And the first band's up in like 2 hours or whatever. And so I would like set up speakers like on the poles and like run all cables for audio equipment and like live sound check out in this giant field. And it was super fun, but also nerve wracking because like city officials are coming to you and like, "Hey, are we going to be ready soon?" Like, yeah, I think so, and like hoping it sounds good, and everybody knows I'm a fraud, just like constant like imposter syndrome. But Lars was a great connection because he knew video guys, and so video guy he introduced me to a video guy. It was my first video production job, where I was mostly doing like Premiere editing in house and some After Effects work. Very green at that too. But learned a lot of stuff. Got to do some really fun stuff through that company to build stuff for like American Airlines Center for like all the screens across there and just different arenas throughout the U.S. And then we got to do a lot of cool promotional work for different corporate clients and stuff. So I kind of got my feet wet in tight deadlines and different types of outputs. But that job did not pay very well at all. And so I was married at this point. Basically, right after college, I got married. And I needed a different job because I was only making $15 an hour, and that was no taxes taken out. And when we were only one income, that was very difficult. And so eventually I moved into a little corporate gig. And at this corporate gig, they paid for Animation Bootcamp. And I'd been looking at Animation Bootcamp, and I was like, hey, this would help me be faster and better and stuff like that. And so I started taking it, and I was surprised how much I did not know about After Effects or even how to be a good motion designer. And so like the principles shocked me. I don't know why they shocked me so much, but I was like, how is this whole world here that I've never known about just sitting here right here underneath my nose? And so I think it was 2017 when I took Animation Bootcamp. Maybe 2016, I can't remember now, but took that, and that was so cool, and that just like took me to a whole new level. And right after that, I got in the alumni group, and that's when I started 15-minute MoGraph. And a 15-minute MoGraph was actually they did like a School of Motion did a little interview, like written interview on me that people can go read. But basically, I was sitting there at work, and I was really just frustrated that I didn't have any cool work. And I was like, well, I'm not making anything. Like, I'm just making this boring sales videos, and I'm not really using my skills. And I was like, what can I do in 15 minutes? And so it's 4:45, and I just opened up.
Can you pull up on your screen? Can you pull up some maybe of your OG 15-minute MoGraph stuff?
Yeah, let me see. I have the first one.
That could be cool.
I was like, what is the first, or what can I do in 15 minutes? So I open After Effects. Why is my internet so slow? Yeah, so I open After Effects, and I'm like, what can I do in 15 minutes? And this is what I made in 15 minutes. I don't even remember how I made it or what I did. I think I had a piece of text, and I had a bunch of compositions, and I just like masked them and stuff like that. And so this was the original name I was talking about earlier, grain.net.
Great.
And I did that.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Thank you for pronouncing it correctly.
No problem.
So 15 minutes, checked out work and went home. And I posted on the alumni group in the alumni room. And I was like, hey, I did this 15 minutes. I just wanted to see if I could do something. And the next day I came back, and like 5 or 10 other people had done the same thing. They're like, hey, Ryan did this really cool thing, and I thought I'd try too. And I was like, that's weird. And so I did another one. Let's see. It's probably the second one here. That's not the second. Yeah, it is. So yeah, I did this for the second day.
That you did,
and
like design and everything.
Yeah.
That's impressive. 15 minutes goes by fast.
It really does, and it helps if you have an idea of what you're going to do. If you have a little of a pre-thought into it, and so Did that in 15 minutes, and then more people started doing it. And then Rod Macy, he's he's an older alumni. He lives in France. He was like, "Hey man, people really like this a lot," and I was like, "Thanks, man." So we kind of started talking about it, and he helped me come up with the original rules for a 15-minute MoGraph, which I don't think I have put. Oh, these are the original rules right here. So he designed this inside of After Effects by writing it out, and then it's called Ryan's 15-minute challenge. I guess that's the original name. I don't know, but I wanted to come up with something different. So this was the original rules that he helped me do. I thought this is a really clever way to showcase this. And he actually put the timeline indicator at 15 minutes.
I typed in the search bar. Here are the rules. This is very clever.
Here are the rules. Yeah, he's very smart. Rod Macy is super cool. And so he helped me do that. And then I had some help from oh man, what are the names? I forget. But there's two other guys that Sam Burton, he helped me do a lot with setting up this. And then there's one more guy, and I can't remember his name right now for some reason. I've said it so many times, but he helped me out. I was pulling another one here.
Okay, is that fake 3D or is that real 3D?
It's a real Cinema 4D. I think I used the C4D Lite or whatever it is instead of After Effects. And I literally pushed them all up at the same time and then back down and then offset their time, and that was it.
That's about all you have time for.
Yeah, seriously. Once I didn't have an idea for this one. I believe this is fake. I believe this is real 3D. It could be fake. I'm pretty sure it's real.
If I can't tell, what does it matter? It looks great. It's compared to some of the stuff I've done for 15-minute MoGraph. I'm looking at this one and the last one you did. I'm like, geez, he must look at our stuff and think, what has happened to School of Motion alumni?
No, not at all. Not at all. There is some stuff in there that is really good. Like there is some really good stuff in there, and there's beginner stuff, and there was beginner stuff whenever we were doing this stuff as well. But this was also untamed, and I just did whatever I wanted. You guys are following, prompts that I'm trying to help build, because otherwise people won't do it. So
right. Can I get clarification on the rules one more time, or once and for all? Can you create designs and art assets ahead of time, and that still counts as a valid 15-minute MoGraph?
Yeah. So the purpose of it is, one, to create something, and to take away the excuse of I don't have time, because I think basically everybody has 15 minutes. But what the purpose of it, one of the main things, is that treat it as if a client is like, hey, can you get this back to me really quick, or can you build something and you can make a proof of concept or something like that within 15 minutes. And you also learn really quick the boundaries of your knowledge of what, either critical thinking or your fluency is not the right word.
Yeah. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, with After Effects.
It becomes really clear, do I know this technique or do I not know it? Because in 15 minutes, I don't have time to go Google this. I just have to do exactly what I know, for sure.
And so that's the main thing. So when you look at that, it's like, oh, okay, I would already have the designs handed to me for, whatever project I'm doing. And so that's this. So after we did the 15-minute MoGraph, I did like 27 days of it straight. I don't remember the last one. I think this one might be the last one that I did, which I don't know if I wrote this down, but this is a design that Greg Stewart did. A lot of people did this too. A lot of people, I wrote the article at the same time we did this. And so there was like a cool little interview piece. Plus you could, get to know the artist and stuff. And we got to put this into the 15-minute MoGraph. And if you want someone, if anybody wants to, they can go through here and look at the stuff. Some of my different 15-minute MoGraphs. But this one was one that really was really fun. That took a lot of thought. And this was very difficult to get done in 15 minutes. But this took a lot of planning. I had to think through, okay, what do I want to happen for these different things? And it's really not that much work to go into it. I'm moving 3 different balls and there's just masks. That's it. But it looks more complicated than it is. This right here, look at this green ball. All it did is it starts here. There's a mask, and I just up, down, that takes maybe 10 seconds to do. And then I just duplicated that and put it over here. I'm done, right? With the green ball. And then the orange one, the bounce, this is actually a little bit hard to get right because I wanted that to look right. And it still feels wrong because if the way that bounces, it wouldn't go back up like that unless there was a spin on the ball. And so I just kind of like, okay, whatever, it's fine.
Yeah.
So I had to get over with that. And then this one right here, I didn't do anything special. It's linear keyframes. And I just acted like the ball. I just set the shape, just shot it. And so, a little bit of forethought goes a long way. And I learned that really quick by doing a lot of these because I wanted them to get better and better. And eventually what really started to nail it in for me is this one right here. I wanted to make something that like felt really big. But so only took 15 minutes. And so this entire thing took me 15 minutes to create.
Any insight into some of the core concepts that you used to do this in 15 minutes that you can remember? It looks like you published this 247 weeks ago, so it might be a little hazy, but do you remember if you like distributed all those background shapes with like a random on their position and then wiggled them, or?
No, see, this was why this one was such a huge piece for me. I built everything in Illustrator, all the little shapes, everything. I didn't try to distribute anything. And so this ball and tail is a giant path. And it's just a path I just randomly drew into different sections. And then I trimmed it, and then I am animating the offset around.
Of course.
Then I put a null to track to go, because you can use a null on a path, and I have a camera on that null, and there's a circle that's also doing that. And the circle, I think, is attached to the null, and it just follows it around. And then every one of those little circles and squares and triangles, those are all stationary from where I built them. And those are just have wiggle parameters on every single one of them. I didn't do anything else with them. And then you can see like little slightly highlighted pieces of the stroke that I just kind of like, it's like a dash basically.
That makes sense.
The glow is a blur that is setting underneath. I just took the comp, duplicated it, blurred it, and then it looks like a glow.
See, that's the sort of thinking that when you start thinking about 15 minutes, those sorts of solutions that are like, they're not the most advanced techniques, but to put them all together in the right order to create an efficient, huge piece like this. I mean, that's the sort of elegance and refinement that I feel like 15-minute MoGraph encourages you to think about. Okay, that makes so much sense now that you say that for the Illustrator to After Effects with them. It's just a big path. I was thinking like, oh, okay, does he have like an echo effect to create the tail? But no, you probably see something. And of course, it's just a big old path with, it's an elegant solution.
And it makes, the wiggle of the tail is, again, just the path. It's just a wiggled path. That's it. But it looks like it wiggles it, Yeah, it's so not cool. The best, but,
Proof of concept. You could easily take this and say, oh, I know how this works. I can do something much cooler for like a client, or if I put in more than 15 minutes.
Exactly.
Can I ask you oh, go ahead. Did you have something else?
No, go ahead.
I was going to ask you about your Instagram handle, Motion Writer, because you also, you've been taking, I know on Twitter, you've been posting some writing assignments, which have been really interesting to read. But where does like the writing piece come in? Because so far you've talked about video production, but you're also a writer.
Yeah. So let me see. I'll pick up back on my story, and then that'll fill in that. Let's see. So 15-minute MoGraph, and then I switched jobs from the job that I was at when I started Animation Bootcamp, 15-minute MoGraph, and I moved to a GM subsidiary called GM Financial. So GM, the General Motors, and that was an amazing job. It was so super cool. And then they decided, or I asked them if I could do Design Bootcamp, and they said yes. And so I took Design Bootcamp. I didn't finish Design Bootcamp all the way. I wish I would have, but I got busy with other things, and I keep telling myself to go back and finish it, but I won't. So I was doing that, and I was writing these pieces and doing 15-minute monograph and stuff like that. And Caleb, who used to work here, reached out to me, and he's like, "Hey, there's this job at School of Motion. Would you be interested in it?" And I had literally just told myself, "I'm not going anywhere for another 5 years. I want to stop job hopping and go anywhere." And then but I'm a super School of Motion fanboy, and so um, I was like, "Okay, this is the only job I think I consider." And so I talked to my wife a lot and some friends, and um, I decided to go ahead and go try for it. And so the job was being a writer at School of Motion. And the hard part was I have no formal training in writing or journalism or anything like that. The only experience I had was my personal effort interviewing people and writing stuff on Medium. And the like for well, we talked about those interviews earlier. And so that combined with like these ideas I'm pulling, being active in the community, and then putting forth my own effort into certain things, made me a prime candidate for this job. Plus, being an alumni with insider knowledge. So I don't know if you know this, but there's not a lot of motion designers that are writers as well, and so there's not a huge field to pick from whenever they're trying to fill in this job, because you either find like a really good writer that's they haven't they know nothing about motion design, or you find somebody who's a good motion designer and they can't do anything with writing. So I definitely was very weak in my writing skills when I started. Caleb trained me up pretty good, and then through just a series of events of digging in at School of Motion and being available and working on stuff, I went from writing to working with the marketing department more to help build content out. And then that's kind of like how I landed where I'm at right now. Once I had our second child, our second daughter. We have two daughters, last November. And so her birthday is actually coming up in 12 days.
Oh, so cool.
I came back and they put me on the community team. There's a lot of like internal shifting that happened. And so I got to come to the community team since we were launching the Square soon. And I came back and it was like, "Hey, we're going to move to a platform." It's like, "Cool, when? Next month." I'm like, "Oh, cool. What do we know?" "Not much. We just decided this." And I was like, "Okay." And so, so we figured that out and we've been working on that ever since. But that's pretty much it.
Jeez. I mean, I see a pattern of like, "Hey, I know After Effects. Let me learn After Effects. Oh, you guys need a writer? I can do that." Like, you seem like a real can-do kind of guy. I would have never guessed that you didn't have formal training in writing from the pieces that I've read that involved you. And just to like bring things full circle here, though I like to, no, that's the wrong thing to say. Bring things full circle. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just wrapping up the interview here with the end section. This is what it's like when I interview. I'm just like, I usually like to end on a low light and a highlight. Low light doesn't have to be some big tragic event. It can be, but it could just be like a funny story, or sometime you learned a valuable lesson the hard way, or something like that. Is there anything in your career so far that comes to mind that was a low light?
Yeah. Maybe 2 years ago, I went to do a motion design project for somebody for an event that had a bunch of projection on it. And the budget that I proposed was a very high number. And they came back and said, "That's way too high. We can only do this very low number," about a quarter of what I was thinking. And I was like, I don't really want to do this. But I was like, well, I don't really have anything lined up and it's still money and I could do the work, whatever. But I entered into this job and there was very little direction and I had very little time to try to hunt down direction. And I was expecting more. And so I was like, okay, well, this is the budget. I'm going to work within that budget. I'm going to get the job done. But my ambition way outweighed what time I had to do things. And I had 2 weeks to build out some of this stuff. And there were like hundreds of assets to be delivered, right? And they take a long time to render. And it was a little bit into a category that I wasn't totally. It was like building Christmas projections and stuff like that. And it wasn't really my strong suit in that regard. And so it came time to deliver, and I did not deliver. And I delivered some of it, and some of the production guys that were working on set had to fill in a lot of the other stuff. Uh, and the producer of it was very kind and was like, "Hey, I want you to know that I had to have some very hard conversations with my client about this stuff, and they are not going to pay me at all for this specific part of it. But I will still pay you a part of what you did because you still did some of the work." And so I had to deal with a lot of frustration around like, okay, I really didn't want to do this job. It was very low, whatever. I was trying to make a lot of excuses for myself. But at the end of the day, I agreed to do something and I didn't deliver on that. And that was a very hard lesson to learn. And it put me kind of like, made me a little bit gun shy about what I do take and what I don't take. But it also, I think, in disguise was a blessing long term for like just saying no to certain projects that I just don't want to put time into. And so, yeah, so that was definitely a low light.
Sounds like it. Jeez. I mean, I'm glad that it wasn't just like you got some of it delivered. Sounds like you learned something from it without, too much long-lasting damage. But man, let's end on a highlight though. In your career, what's a highlight that stands out?
There are many moments that I've had working at School of Motion that have been awesome and super wonderful, that have not only like impacted me professionally, but my family as well, because we have a job that, the job that I have has allowed for 2 times I've had 3 months paternity leave, which is
Nice.
unheard of.
Yeah.
And so I've had a lot of time with my daughters. But I think one thing that is really cool, that I guess not a lot of people get to see because maybe they're on the outside, is I remember so I came in to School of Motion, and about a month later, we had a company retreat and we were all going to Rhode Island. There were 6 of us at that time. Me, Joey, Elena, Jean, Amy, and Caleb. And I was super nervous. And I knew when I were getting there that it was just going to be me, Elena, and Joey. Elena is the president of School of Motion, and Joey is Joey, the founder of it, right? And I was like, I have no idea how I'm going to talk to these people because I'm just this country bumpkin from Texas that lives in the city and is faking it into this industry, and I don't even know how to write. And so they just hired me to do all this stuff. I'm an imposter, right? And when I met up with them, we went to go get ramen. First time having ramen too, by the way. And I was like, yeah, we're not even talking about that. It was good. It was really good.
Yeah, you like it?
But yeah, I liked it a lot. It was a little scary at first, all just kind of floating and noodles and stuff. But met with Joey and Lena, and they just talked to me like almost like we were family. And it was, no one was trying to be better than anybody or super smart or anything like that. And it wasn't like just everything Joey said was like golden wisdom just flowing out of his mouth like it was an animation boot camp. That was a wonderful kind of revelation and realization that we're all just kind of like normal people. We're just doing these jobs. We're trying to help people. And no one's unapproachable that I have met in this industry so far. I'm sure there's some people out there. I haven't ran into them. Maybe that's just a part of the crowd that I've been hanging out with and who we kind of work with at School of Motion. But I think that was a highlight because it took away a lot of the anxiety and a lot of the imposter syndrome that I have. Not to put me on an arrogant side, but to just kind of have a lot more ease in my mind whenever I'm working on a project or talking to people or whatever. And so, yeah, we're all just normal people trying to do jobs here and help people. And so,
awesome. I mean, it sounds like a highlight. I am still trying to deal with the fact that Joey isn't just some fountain of perpetual wisdom. I'm not sure I believe you, but I can sort through that after this interview. Anyway, Ryan, I know you're a busy guy, so thank you so much for being here and sharing all about yourself. I hope everybody learned something. I always talk too much at this part. Ryan, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. I'm going to hit stop recording.